building. And so I was assigned to build the field, and he assigned himself, I'll build the energy side, you build the relationship marketing side. So when someone talks about loving this company and loving what it's about, loving what it represents, there's not a person on the planet that loves this vision and mission more than me. I loved it back then, and I love it today. There's a couple things I want to point out. First of all, there's a gentleman that was in the back, bless you by the way, he was standing in the back outside the door, and he's on the phone talking in Portuguese. And he was translating for people in the room who don't even speak English. So, for those of you que falam português, depois a gente bater papo, tá bom? There you go. So, the reason that this whole thing developed, the 7 continents in 7 years, the company, we sat in a room and Michael talked about, part of the session we were talking about, how are we going to reward our associates? How are we going to, what's the kind of the culture that we're going to create around building a rewards and incentive package for our leaders? And the concept came up of, we want to experience the world. And you can't experience the world by sitting by a pool. I promise you, a pool in Rio de Janeiro is the same as a pool in New Jersey. It's just a pool. The sun shines, you're sitting by a pool, you're drinking a margarita, they taste the same.
Right.
So the concept of serving those communities in which we were participating, can you do me a favor? Can you go get our sound guy and just have him tool me up? The concept of 7 continents in 7 years, look at this, tech. The issue is not whether you have tech issues. You're going to have tech issues. It's how you handle the tech issues.
That's right.
The thing that we wanted to do is we wanted to experience the world together. And the concept of serving each community in which we went to participate, all these continents, we wanted to leave them better than when we found them. And so why we chose Brazil first was because I spoke Portuguese. And that's the only reason we chose Brazil. Because I thought, well, let's go to Brazil because at least going to a foreign country with 30 or 40 qualifiers, we won't get lost, we won't get mugged, I'll be able to talk our way out of anything. So that was really the whole reason why we chose Brazil. So that was just one of the fun notes that I wrote. Donna French's story, by the way, do you love her? Give her a round of applause. I built Australia on the back of that story.
Yeah.
I built Australia on the back of Donna French's story. Because I would get in front of a room and I would tell them, there is no quit. There is no quit. I don't want to hear excuses. If you have an issue, you want something done, come to me with solutions. And together with solutions, we'll figure out a way to build this market. And just like the very first ever associate came to Viridian through a Craigslist ad that I posted, and she responded 60 seconds later, the very first, I kid you not, I'm like, she said, I'm calling about the ad. I'm like, what ad? That's what I said, what ad? She goes, no, it's on Craigslist. I went, I just posted it. She goes, okay, I'm calling on it. That was an awkward exchange. But the very first associate in Australia, I met at church. I went in because I was looking for a place to live, and I found a home, and so I walked into what would be my local congregation had I bought that house. And this woman, within literally 10 seconds, I sat down, this woman walked up, sat down in front of me, and she said, hi, what's your name? I said, my name's Robert. She goes, Robert? Because they don't say it's Robert. Robert. It's just, it's...
Where's the hand mic?
On the table. Left.
It's over here.
Right there.
Over there.
Okay, that's right.
So by turning that little thing off, we're gonna be in business?
Yep.
Thanks,
I
bud.
love this guy. Give him a round of applause. So, the reason that it's important that you understand the story is because I was assigned, let's back up really quickly. I left 2 years after we got started. I went from VP to SVP to president. And then I left for 4 years. And 4 years after I left Viridian, I got a call from Michael Falquist that said, the company is not the same without you. We want you back. That was the single most important phone call that I had ever received in my business life, because I am home.
Yes.
So I'm so glad to be back, but I couldn't tell anybody. For almost a year, I guess it was like 7 months. I was building Australia. By the way, we want you to move to Australia. I'm like, huh? So I start commuting every 10 days to 2 weeks. I'm back and forth to Australia. You want to build up miles on an airline? Start flying back and forth to Australia 2 times a month. So I started building that market. And we started seeding it with just conversation. And we couldn't tell anybody the name of the company because the last thing we could have happen is Viridian's name get out in Australia and somebody finds somebody on Facebook wanting to ask somebody questions. Hey, I heard you guys are coming to Australia. We couldn't even say the name of the company. It was just an idea of something that was going to happen. Sound familiar? Like deja freaking boo. So we start, I took a couple of people to dinner. This gal that introduced herself to me, I said, look, I'm leaving. My brother-in-law is here. He was just down with me hanging out. He said, hey, I'm looking for a place to stay for the next 11 days while Rob goes back to the States. We were literally asking, could you recommend a hotel in the area? And she's like, oh, just stay with us. 30 seconds in, she's inviting some random American to stay at her house with her husband and 5 children. Her husband walks up and she goes, this is Robert and Brad. And Brad's going to be staying with us for 11 days while Rob goes back to the States. And her husband looks and goes, okay. So Brad couldn't even say the name of the company, but he's like, hey, something's coming and it's really interesting. And he's like, if it's one of those network marketing schemes, I want nothing to do with it. He was the biggest anti-relationship marketing person. He'd never done one before, but he was tired of getting approached by that guy, right? The guy that walks into a room and they want nothing but to sell you stuff. And he got so sick and tired of getting hit up that he had just put up walls and wanted nothing to do with relationship marketing. So it was a long journey, but I can assure you, they were the first Viridian associates. It took them like 7 months to finally get over the hurdles, and once he heard the name of the company and started talking about it, they jumped on board. But they weren't sold. They were not sold. But they got involved with 1 foot. And it wasn't for about 3 months. And it was actually a call from Ed Kenny, an ambassador here in Maryland, that he got on the phone with Ed and he says, look, Rob is great. But Rob's telling me what I want to hear. I don't want that story. I want to hear it from you. Tell me what it is that I'm looking at. And within 15 minutes, Barron put down the phone. I'm never looking back. I'm full steam ahead. Because he heard it from you. I can preach all you want. But I come from a different lens. I'm corporate, right? You're a field. So listen to Jenna or Terry or Jerry, right? we'll give you a morphed name. So listen to Jerry. It's a different animal to hear from someone that sits in your seat. That's why this company is powerful, because I've sat in your seat. I sat second row, inside aisle, speaker right. That's the very first seat I ever sat in when I went to a meeting. Paul, our CEO, sat in your seat. So this is a company now being led by people who know what our decisions do to you. And so we see things through your lens. And that is going to change the culture of how we go from 324 million to 1 billion, which I give us 3 years to hit that mark. I just said it. It's public. It's out there. It's out there. All right. So I have hardly any time. So we're going to do this. We're supposed to end in 5 minutes. And Charlotte has some promotions that she wants to talk about. So this is what I'm going to propose, because I'm respectful of your time and not everybody cares to sit and listen to me. I totally appreciate that. So I'm going to bring Charla up. Charla's going to finish off this meeting. We're going to close. Let those that have babysitters go do their thing, and then reconvene. And I'll take off my coat. I'll stay here till midnight. I'm sleeping in this hotel. I'll stay here as long as you want. I'll answer every question, because I do have some fun themes. I was going to talk about 7 continents in 7 years, but the only reason I was going to talk about this is because this, to me, is more important than the compensation plan. People will come for the money. They will stay for the culture. Yeah. And this culture is real. He bought into this company because of the culture. Yeah. He deals with a lot of different companies. And the fact that he says there was something different about the culture. That is something that we have created over 7 years. That is not something that you just craft. I was going to do this. It's called training roulette. Every one of those, I got some pretty deep experience. And so if you want me to share those experiences with you, and you can afford to stick around, then I am more than willing to stay as long as this room has a butt in a seat. I'll stay and teach and train and communicate. Fair enough?
Yep.
Do me a favor. Welcome up, Carlos.